Well, we're done meeting all of our contestants. It's time to get into the meat of the season. And this episode, we had our first two tap outs of the season. 10 people is a little bit too much to kind of get a good grasp on everybody and everything everyone's doing. So I kind of appreciate having a couple rapid fire tap outs at the beginning so we get a better chance to really get to know and see everything that everyone else is doing. You know, probably need to get like another two tap outs or so just to get to the point where we can see everybody every episode keep up with what everyone is doing. So let's go into our first tap out of the season, and that was Lee. I very much enjoyed Lee. You know, he probably came in way too thin. He was a little bit too lackadaisical about everything. I was really hoping for him to do well, but just didn't work out for me. I think he might have been our oldest competitor this season, and you know, without having that extra weight on his body, he just got worn down too quickly and was forced to tap out. You know, we started seeing him work on his permanent shelter. Looked like he was building a pretty substantial log cabin and just couldn't keep up the calories to complete that project, and he ends up being our first tap out of the season. So I very much enjoyed Lee this season. Wish him all the best. And yeah, you know, even as a first tap out, a lot of seasons we'll come on here, we're grumbling about somebody losing the fire rod, grumbling about somebody who got a little sad after a week and tapped out. But I don't feel that way this season. I forget what day we got to. I think we were about 3 weeks in, around day 20. I feel pretty good about that as a first tap out of the season. So maybe that's setting up for a great season overall. Let's jump into our second tap out of the season, Anne. So Anne, I believe in episode 2, saw some signs of moose in her area. She actually gets to see a moose, but it's way out in the lake. She also sees a grouse, shoots a grouse. That was about it for Anne. You know, she started not feeling great, was a little bit too behind on food, and started getting concerned about having a heart attack. And, you know, as much as the $500,000 could make an incredible difference in your life, you have to protect yourself, especially this early into the season. You know, if we were at day 90, I could understand her pushing it a little farther to see if she could get the win. But, you know, or at day 20, if you're feeling this way, you got to get on the radio and tap out. So enjoyed Anne. Wish we would have got to see a little bit more from her. But that is it. We're down to 8, and let's get into the rest of the contestants. So Mikey, he was getting a little bit sick last time we saw him. He manages to make it through the sickness, shoots a birthday grouse for himself, loses an arrow, and then we see him attempting to make an arrow. Didn't quite see the end results of that, but I don't really remember ever seeing that in the past. And then this episode, we saw 2 people making arrows. As I get the hiccups mid-recording here, yeah, hopefully the Mikey doesn't that the sickness didn't take too much out of him to put him in too much of a deficit. But yeah, I don't really know where we're gonna go with Mikey just yet. He's a person who's probably got to make it another episode or 2 before we get a better understanding of just how far they are going to go. Next, let's jump over to our favorite of the season. Yes, that's right, Alan. He is building a teepee, finds a pine marten in his snare. That's an animal they're not allowed to kill. So he had to go through kind of a little bit of an endeavor to get the marten out of the snare, was successful, managed to release the pine marten, not get hurt himself, and move on. After that, he decided that, not gonna take down the snares. He goes and takes down all his snares and says he'll wait until the snow shows up so that he can more see where the hares are, the animals that he actually wants to trap, where they're running, instead of just willy-nilly trapping all over the place and potentially catching, hurting, killing animals that he doesn't want to. He did get, in my opinion, a little bit of karma out of that, as he gets a nice lake trout later in the episode, after not catching fish for a week. So very excited to see where Alan ends up going with everything this season. He's entertaining. Looks like he's knowledgeable, personal connection there as well. So of course we're going to be rooting for him to go all the way. Next up, we have Cade. Cade might not be our favorite of the season. He might be the opposite of Alan, but we see him attempting to make some arrows, and actually makes some usable arrows and gets a grouse with his homemade arrow. Wasn't quite sure how that was going to go for them. I expected the homemade arrows to be significantly less accurate than they were. Kind of just made a little blunted tip on the end. He's not trying to make an arrowhead or anything. Just a nice blunt on the end. So he just has to hit the animal, the smaller animal. He's not going to take down a moose or a bear with an arrow like that, but it's enough for him to continue hunting and continuing to get grouse, squirrels, whatever else he can find out in the bush. Oh yeah, he started a little forest fire, and he had a bucket, and was able to put that fire out. Lastly, we've got Luke, and it looked like Luke had a little stockpile of fish. This is one of the dirty tricks that Alone likes to pull on us. They don't show all the food that the contestants are getting. Like, we go back to Alan, we hear that he hasn't had fish for a week, and then we go to Luke, and apparently he's caught 11 fish so far. It's like, why? Let's show us. Like, even if it's just like a little montage, show us that he got 11 fish. Like, we want to know what these people are doing. We don't just want to be like, have no clue how this guy has got all this food, and how he's doing so well, when you just kind of just don't show us that. We've seen that in seasons past, where certain contestants have gotten way more food than what we were told, and like, we were kind of watching, thinking like, oh, they're starving, they're not doing well. Meanwhile, they've had food the whole time, and that's kind of the situation that's getting started here with Luke. After not hearing anything about these 11 fish, all of a sudden he's got a nice little stockpile of fish, and is doing quite well for himself. He's also making a shelter away from the shore and the wind. I think that is a good decision, and just kind of digging into a small hill for his shelter, which could work out nicely for him, could be a good way to retain some heat. And the wind ain't blowing through a hill, so that could be very good for him. Depending on how much moisture we end up getting before winter sets in, that could be a concern for him and his shelter, but I think he will be just fine. All right, that is it for episode 3. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you later.